may be seated.
Hello, Your Honor.
Hello.
This is a case of Marsh versus Maldonado.
Thank you, Jerome.
You're welcome.
Good day, everyone. This is Wesley. He suffers from a severe case of autism. He's being raised by his grandmother and barely knows his mother and his father. The results of today's paternity test will help determine the course of his future. Mr. Marsh, you are listed on Wesley's birth certificate as his dad.
Yes, Your Honor.
But you claim his biological father is actually his mother's neighbor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you both have been tested, and we'll hear the results shortly. Now, Mrs. Maldonado, you are Wesley's grandmother and legal guardian.
Yes, Your Honor.
You say you desperately need help caring for him, and Mr. Marsh has been nothing but a deadbeat dad.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, now the court has made efforts to track down Wesley's mother, and we will hear from her shortly. Now, the defendant claims you're a deadbeat dad. Have you been helping with the care of Wesley?
I would help with my son if I was allowed in his life, or I wasn't told that I can come and see my son whenever I want to, and yet I have to see him outside. I'm not allowed inside the house. So I don't see a reason to put a one-year-old child outside in the cold just for me to be able to see him or for me to be able to help out with him. I pay my child support. I pay $269 plus money in my arrearments. I'm $13,000 in debt because of it, but I still, whenever I have a job, I pay the state for child support.
So, Jerome, can you please grab that evidence that Mr. Marsh held up? So, Mr. Marsh, you said a one-year-old, but Wesley's 6.
Yeah, I made the decision when he was a year old because I wasn't allowed in the house. I couldn't keep who I thought was my son out in the cold to see him. I made the decision when he was about 1 year old on his first birthday that I would not put him through that stress. I told him I loved him. I gave him his birthday present, and I told him to look me up when he turned 18. You don't know. You weren't outside. You were inside.
I was watching from the kitchen.
But that doesn't
and you
mean
haven't
you
seen
can
him
hear.
in 5 years.
So, wait a minute. When you went by and saw him when he was 1 year old, you said this wasn't right for him to have to come outside for you to see him.
Correct.
So you made the decision that I'm just going to leave this alone. I'm going to pay my child support, but I'm going to keep my distance, and when he's 18, he can find me.
Yes, Your Honor. I didn't see a point of every time I went to go see my son to be threatened to be put in the ER if I walked through the threshold of the door.
That
so
is
now,
incorrect.
Ms. Maldonado, is he being threatened when he comes to try to see Wesley?
No, he is not. He's not allowed in my house anymore because when my grandson was 2.5 months old, he came over to the house and he disrespected me and my husband in my house. And at that point, I told him that he needs to leave. And if he wants to see his son, that we will meet somewhere, or he can be outside in the times that it's cold outside.
That's not what was said.
That is exactly what's said.
So when you say if he wanted to see his son, you believe he is, in fact, Wesley's father?
That's what I have to believe, Your Honor, because his name is on my grandson's birth certificate. I did not give birth to him. I can only go by what's on the paperwork.
All right, so on the paperwork, he is listed as a father. In your mind, the way you operate, he's the father.
And that's
you
what my
said you
daughter
can see
told
him
me.
outside, or we can meet somewhere.
Correct.
So did you ever try to meet somewhere?
We did at a restaurant in town, and he did not show up.
I was not aware that I had an appointment to go see my son.
So why would they go to a restaurant if they didn't think they were meeting you?
They may have thought that they were getting it set up somewhere along the lines, probably trying to go through Jolene, who never really told me anything. She's a habitual liar, so usually what she said I took with a grain of salt.
So, Mr. Marsh, you signed the birth certificate.
Yes, Your Honor.
So why is it you have doubts?
He just does not look like me. I'm all white. There's no any other kind of descent in my family. Jolene's half Puerto Rican. Jeremy's father's is full-blood Puerto Rican. So, I mean, there is Hispanic descent in the family.
So when his mother was pregnant, were you ever told it could be anyone else?
I had Jeremy who cracked jokes about, you might want to get a paternity test because it was a big joke around that Jolene cheated.
Your Honor, I went to his mother's house with my son that is here and asked him, how do you know that that baby is yours? I know that that's my grandchild, but how do you know that that baby's yours? I told him twice before my grandchild was born, and then in the hospital, when he was questioning because my grandson was dark, because my family is Puerto Rican, I said, don't sign his birth certificate. And he signed it anyway.
I didn't have doubt at that point in time.
At that time, you didn't, so you signed it.
Yeah, I was 17. I was young and dumb and in love. I thought the woman I fell in love with, the first woman I fell in love with, couldn't possibly do that to me.
And then you're saying as Wesley grew up, got older.
Okay,
As
Your
he
Honor, but
felt
he
like-
knows that my daughter's a liar. It's not a secret.
It's not a
That's
secret.
why I went to his house before my grandson was born and told him, how do you know that that baby is yours?
Wow.
And then after
I
that
gave
baby
her the
was born,
benefit
I
of a
told
doubt.
him.
Wait a minute. You went to his house before
Yes,
the
ma'am.
baby was born
Yes, ma'am.
and straight up told him.
His mother was there when I said it with my son and said, how do you
Do
know
you
that that
remember
baby
this
is yours?
conversation,
I
Mr.
do.
Marsh?
And I still to this day gave Jolene the benefit of a doubt.
So you had doubt,
not believe
Ms. Maldonado. You had doubt
I
from
did.
the get-go.
I did.
And you've also brought your son as a witness. I'd like to hear from you, sir. Please stand. Mr. Neely,
Yes, Your Honor.
thank you for coming today. What do you have to add? You were there for this conversation?
Yes, I was.
What do you know about this?
Well, I know that my sister cannot tell the truth to save her soul. So, okay, there is no doubt in my mind. If she told me the sky was blue, I would actually look before believing that the sky was actually blue.
So, do you believe that Mr. Marsh is Wesley's father?
Honestly, I do not believe he is.
Really?
Dead serious.
Why is that?
Well, because my sister has had multiple friends, boyfriends. There you go.
Okay.
So,
So you are aware that your sister was with multiple men probably during the time Wesley was conceived.
yes. And I forewarned Eddie that if you do not know it's yours, do not sign the paperwork.
So you even warned Mr.
Went
Marsh.
to his house.
So this is
with
your
my
sister
mom.
and this is your
Yes.
daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
She's pregnant and you all
Told
take a trip
him
over to the father's,
because
would-be
I
father's house
knew
and
where he
tell him
lived.
you shouldn't sign that birth certificate.
Yes, ma'am.
If you want more episodes of Paternity Court, make sure to subscribe and click on the notification bell. You went to his house
I did.
before the baby was born, and
Yes,
on two
ma'am.
occasions you said to him, this might not be your baby, you might want to check.
Yes,
And he
ma'am.
signs the birth certificate anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
Once he signs the birth certificate, there becomes an issue with you all trying to figure out how he can see the child. You feel like he wasn't respectful in your home, and then he's not allowed to come in anyway. But ultimately, you criticize him for not being that involved. Do you understand that you and your son placed the doubt in his mind that he might not be the child's father?
Yes, ma'am.
And then ultimately, that same doubt is what brings him here today and probably has affected the way he has interacted over the years, always in the back of your mind, not knowing, is this or is this not my child?
Yeah, he looks like one of the neighbor kids that we went to high school with that she spent an awful lot of time with, other than who lived a mile down the road from where I was living at. Spent an awful lot of time over at his house versus at my house.
And you believe that this neighbor could be Wesley's biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
And this neighbor was not able to appear in court today, but he did in fact submit a statement, which I have here. It says, I was friends with both Jolene Neely and Edward Marsh in high school. After Ms. Neely got pregnant, we had a falling out. I don't remember what caused the argument, and I haven't spoken to either of them since then. Edward Marsh is accusing me of being the father to Wesley, and I know it's not true. I did not get Jolene Neely pregnant, and I can't wait for the DNA results to prove it. And he has been tested, and we will hear those results shortly. Mr. Marsh, you've also brought a witness.
Yes, ma'am.
Please stand, ma'am. State your name for the court,
Adelina Marsh,
and you are Mr. Marsh's
mother.
mother. What do you have to add, ma'am?
I've never thought this baby was his.
Really? Never.
Never.
And you are Mr. Marsh's
Mother.
mother. What do you have to add, ma'am?
When I saw that baby in the hospital, the first time I looked at it, I went, that's not ours.
Wow.
We are Anglo-Saxon and Scandinavian, and I've got the darkest hair in our family, and the rest of my kids are white and blonde. My grandchildren are all white and blonde.
Wait a minute, though, because he just already said that the mother's family has Puerto Rican descent there. So why is it such a question if you know on their side of the family there are other nationalities?
My stepson, who is 31, who has 2 children by a Hispanic woman who is full-blooded Hispanic, produced 2 of the prettiest blonde, blue-eyed, white
It doesn't
kids
matter.
you have
You know, my
ever
daughter
seen.
has a blonde hair,
Hold
blue-eyed
on
baby
now.
also.
Hold on now. I know all grandmothers think their children are beautiful, but
And
I
I
hope
thought
that
he
it's
was
not just
gorgeous.
based on the fact that they were blonde hair and blue eyes.
No, I thought he was a gorgeous baby.
I hope what you're saying is your side of the family had very strong genes and it had resonated in even another situation where your son's wife was Hispanic. They still had genes that you felt like represented your family. And when you saw this baby, you just didn't see the same characteristics and it made you doubt.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, my daughter has 2 other children. My younger granddaughter looks just like my grandson Wesley, and my youngest granddaughter is blonde-haired, blue eyes by my daughter. So it doesn't matter. It's just the way that it
what we know about
works out.
DNA is DNA does its own thing. However, I will give you this, ma'am. When the mother's mother and the mother's brother comes over to the would-be father's house and says, you need to have a DNA test, now that is something you can base a doubt on.
I doubted it from the beginning.
Ms. Maldonado, please explain to the court, how did you end up with custody?
Your Honor, my daughter was living with me when she gave birth to my grandson. She was home for about 2.5 months with me and my husband and had told us she was going for a pack of cigarettes and never came back.
What?
After 3 months, I finally got a hold of her. She came back and I said, that's it. You take this baby or you sign him over to me because I can't do this by myself. I need help from the state. At that point, in April of 2008, she signed a power of attorney that we took and went and had taken care of so that I had legal custody of Wesley to take care of him. Now, I did get a hold of my daughter before we came here, and she did give me a video statement that she wanted you to hear because she
Yes.
couldn't be here.
I do want to hear from her. Let's take a look at that statement.
Hi, I'm Jolene. I'm Wesley's mother. Edward Marsh is Wesley's father. He has been denying my son. Last time he saw him was the fall of 2008. He never bought him any diapers except for 1 pack. He bought him 1 pack of wipes. That is unacceptable and uncalled for. So, quit denying your son, and when the paternity test comes back positive, I hope and pray you get what you deserve.
This has been all on you.
Yes.
Even though she condemns Mr. Marsh's behavior and says it's unacceptable.
She's also unacceptable.
Thank you. I'm glad you said it. You have been raising this child on your own pretty much since he was born.
With the help of both of my sons and my husband, yes, ma'am.
I was told in order to see him, I had to buy diapers and diaper wipes. You know,
Oh,
it was
that
too-
is definitely
unless
not true.
somebody
All
took
you've
them
ever
off
done
your-
for this baby is
unless you-
pay for the circumcision and buy a box of wipes. That is all you have ever done. Oh, I'm sorry.
Unless
I had to hear
somebody-
it.
Him every
unless
week to
somebody-
buy diapers.
My
Hold
mother
on
brought
now.
me every week and took me to Walmart every single
Well, then you know
week
what? The
to
diapers
buy-
and the wipes weren't
Then
getting to me.
They were placed
No.
on your front step when nobody answered the door.
I always answered the door.
No, not always.
didn't.
You know, you have no
I
clue
was-
what it costs to raise a child.
No, I do
An
know how it
autistic
takes
child.
to.
You
In
have
fact,
to
I know what it
Hold
takes
on,
to raise
Ms.
2 children.
Maldonado, you have prepared some evidence for the court
Yes, ma'am.
as it relates to the expenses.
Yes,
Please
ma'am.
step forward.
His doctor and his therapy visits alone are $25,000 a year. The devices that I need, the toys and things that I need to teach him, because you can't teach him as you would a normal child, $3,000, give or take. Food, housing, that's normal. My grandson's 6 years old and he's still in pull-ups because he doesn't know how to go potty yet. You think that's free? That costs money. And school now. He started school this year.
And you are contending that you've had to do all of this, provide for Wesley and make sure he is taken care of and have the things he needs, and you're not receiving the support you feel like Mr. Marsh should be giving him.
No, ma'am.
If I
It
was
comes
allowed in his life, I
sporadically.
would have.
I purposely had it go through the state so that I can prove what he was and wasn't paying me.
So, Ms. Maldonado, what are you hoping for today? Are you hoping that he is?
I'm
Wesley's
hoping he's
father?
not, so that we can move forward from this and let everything go. If he is not my grandson's father, I want his name off my grandson's birth certificate, and once his name is removed, I will absolve him of the back child support, because if he's not his father, he doesn't need to pay.
If the neighbor is Wesley's father, will you let him in the child's life?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hopefully
All right,
better
it's
choice
time
I
for
got.
results. Jerome? Thank you.
You're welcome.
These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics, and they read as follows. In the case of Marsh versus Maldonado, when it comes to the paternity of Wesley Maldonado Neely, and whether Mr. Marsh or Wesley's mother's neighbor is his father, Mr. Marsh, you are his father.
Does that mean I get my rights to him? And I can go without the threats and actually be
Nobody
able to
threatened you.
I've sat on the fence for 5 years about getting the paternity test done because I wanted to believe that he was mine. Maybe I can have my rights to him.
That is all the past. I'm not sure what happened in the altercation. I don't know what's going on, but you all going forward have to think about Wesley, not about yourselves. You all are adults. If you've had an argument or an issue, sit down, discuss it, and move forward, for goodness sake.
We can try.
You have to try, because if you have his best interest at heart, that's what it requires you to do. Now, the child already doesn't have a relationship with his mother. That's your daughter. Now, he's blessed that you're filling in the blanks. But you can't fill in this blank, especially when this man wants to be a part of the child's life. This court will provide resources to help you all begin to figure this out. Not just for your sakes, but more importantly for Wesley's sake. Are we clear?
Yes,
Yes,
Your
we
Honor.
are.
Court is adjourned.
I apologize for my past behavior. I mean,
Well, and I'm also sorry, and you know, maybe we can sit down when we get home and work things out, and you need to understand we have to slowly introduce.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, we understand.
Autistic children, it takes a little bit of work, but I mean, we got to start slowly and then move up. I don't expect all this to just happen out of nowhere.